Hello. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. I'm your boy Carl E. Long, and welcome to my podcast. Welcome to another episode. This is episode 35, guys, believe it or not. I've done 35 of these, guys. Yes, I have, but I have been enjoying every bit of it. Yes, it has been therapeutic as well as healing, as well as frustrating, and as well as what's the word? I don't know. Frightening. Yes, frightening because the subject matter that I am on right now is the whole Trump regime. So I started off this podcast with naming everything Trump Watch because that's what we're having to do, guys. This is Trump 2.0, and Trump 2.0 is way scarier than Trump 1.0. And unfortunately, that's what we got. Which brings me to the title of this podcast today, which is Why Can't Americans Recognize the True Trump Agenda? America's Return to Greatness, the Revenge Tour. That's what I'm calling this for Donald Trump. The revenge. So why can't Americans recognize the Trump agenda? And I pose that question to myself because if you stay bathed in social media and network news and podcasts that I do, you're finding that there's something going on in America, guys. There's something going on that is both frightening and exciting at the same time. Exciting because there are some people that are realizing that not everybody in this country is on the up and up. We've got some people in this country that are still living in the dark ages, that still believe that there is a superior race, if you will, in this country. I mean, we still have these people in our country. As sad as you may think, social media, this has probably always been here, guys, most likely always been here. But what social media has done, it has just made it just more apparent. It has given it life. It has given everything life. And like I told you in a previous episode, spend a day on Twitter or listen to Fox News all day and you'll see what I mean. I mean, the hate is real. The hate is real. And so this is why I asked that question, because all the people that are following Donald Trump, this whole presidency 2.0 has been all about him. It's a retribution. Donald Trump is basically just mad, everybody. He is mad that he got impeached. He is mad that he got sued. He's got mad that he was convicted. He is mad at anybody that crossed him, and he wants revenge. That's who this guy is and always has been. And because of the way that this man is made up, people are afraid of him. They're afraid of crossing him. They're afraid. They are afraid of Donald J. Trump. And I don't know why. He sits in that Oval Office and you look at him and you go, what a sad human being. What a sad human being who parts of his family have disowned him, whose wife just barely tolerates him, who is a self-proclaimed, by his own words, that says he doesn't really have friends. What a sad individual. And this sad individual had the gall and the ambition to be the president of the United States. He said it many times in the 80s that he wanted to be president, and he got it. But this sad individual, Donald J. Trump, is someone who has been able to manipulate his existence for many, many years. And unfortunately, it has worked for him. It has worked for him. So I was saying in another podcast earlier, I was talking about how White Americans, because you're white and you are the or the inventor or the orchestrator or the creator of racism, if you will, you have not been able to really rally behind a leader or a cause. There was never any white power. Saying white power is very much white nationalist and can be considered to be racist. Can't say that, but saying black power, that's a movement. Chicano power, that was a movement. Women marching, that was a movement. But to say white people marching, you can't do that, because that sounds like you are anti everything. You are nationalists. You are some sort of a cultist group that denounces people. So then I say all that to say Donald Trump to them is the absence of having a leader. I mean, we had Martin Luther King. We had Malcolm X. We've had many people. Medgar X. We've had many leaders, as well as the Chicanos. They had many leaders that followed them in their movement. Women had leaders, but you cannot say that as a white people that they can march and do things with Donald Trump. So he represents that to them, which is why no matter what he does, they don't care, because they have their leader. They have their leader. And remember, all of this kind of started because a lot of the white Americans felt disenfranchised. That's why they're so anti-DEI or anti-affirmative action, because they feel like they call it reverse racism. So we have a mess here in America, guys. We have a mess here in America, because no matter how bad this guy does, there is a section of America that does not care. They don't care. Yes, Donald Trump's numbers are dropping in the polls overall, but when you do a poll against the Republican Party and people that are just particularly followers of him, his numbers aren't moving that much. They don't care. They don't care. When you break down specific policies, things, a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon saying, no, he's not doing good with the economy. But overall, how do you rate him? They still are giving him a good rating. You hear what I'm saying here? Now, this is what I'm saying. So let's just talk about what Donald Trump's retribution is all about. Let's just talk about what his retribution is. A significant part of Donald Trump's current agenda appears to be driven by a theme of retribution, at least rhetorically. Can't say the word. Trump himself has leaned into this message. I am your retribution. So number one thing that he's doing is he's targeting the deep state. So he's purging federal employees, plans to revise Schedule F, which would reclassify thousands of civil service jobs to make them fireable without cause, aims to centralize more control over agencies, the DOJ, FBI, IRS. So his retribution angle is seen as a punishment for investigations, impeachments, and what Trump describes as weaponization of government. Number two, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Yes, the lovely DOGE. Yeah, that's the one thing that we are so happy with. Tasked with eliminating waste and draining the swamp, but also positioned to eliminate agencies and programs Trump views as hostile and ideological, like DEI initiatives. Headed by Elon Musk, of course, and Vivek Ramaswamy, who they kicked out early. The retribution angle, rolling back what Trump sees as the left's institutional strongholds. Okay, so that's a revenge against the left. Immigration crackdowns. So this is one we all kind of agree on. Massive deportation plans and use of extraordinary legal tools. Insurrection Act raise questions about just policy goals, but desire to undo Biden-era leniency. So what's the retribution angle there? Reversing all the policies under Joe Biden, implemented under his successor, often framed as correcting a stolen country. His country was stolen. This is all retribution. Then there's a justice system overall. Y'all know how he feels about that. Intense focus on reshaping the DOJ and FBI. Trump's legal challenges led him to call for defunding or dismantling agencies that investigated or indicted him. So his retribution angle is many of these efforts seemed aimed at punishing or weakening institutions that held him accountable. So yeah, see, this guy's all this is about nothing. You're not in here anywhere. And number 5. Media and academic institutions. This one's kind of scary to me that he even went after this, because this is First Amendment stuff. Plans to defund NPR, PBS, and rework education policy, remove leftist ideologies. Accuses these institutions of bias and indoctrination. The retribution angle is going after perceived enemies in media and education who have criticized or challenged him. All right. And then number 6, his political opponents. Trump has openly threatened to investigate. Let me pause this. Investigate or prosecute political opponents if elected. Statements suggest that he'd push DOJ to go after those who claimed wronged him, a reversal of norms around independent law enforcement. So he's going after all of his political adversaries. The retribution angle. This is the clearest example of framing, not just around law, but around personal revenge. Yes, personal revenge. In short, retribution is not the entire Trump agenda, but it informs the tone, the urgency, and some of the political of some of the policy goals, especially those tied to institutional reform, legal restructuring, and media education oversight. Supporters see it as justice or taking back power, while critics view it as personal vengeance wrapped in policy. So you see that supporters, they view this as justice for Trump because he was wronged, right? Or taking back power, while critics view it as personal vengeance wrapped in policy. So you see what I'm saying? So there is a whole class of people who, no matter what Donald J. Trump does, they don't care. They just don't care. Yeah, so this is the retribution, Donald Trump. So that's why I asked the question, why can't Americans see what his true agenda is? Like the tariffs. I mean, that was one of his campaign promises, and it's something he's always believed in. I'll give him that. But the fact of the matter, this man has never, and I want you to point out some time where you have ever seen Trump say he was wrong. I don't believe those words exist in his vocabulary. So he would rather have the American people lose trillions of dollars just to make a point. And the guy's delusional. There's poll after poll and business leaders and economists that are telling him you're doing this the wrong way. But he listens to no one. Because he is the know-all, do-all, everything all. It's him. What a sad individual. Sad, guys. Very, very sad. So, I'm just wondering if we ever are going to get out of this thing that we call Donald J. Trump. I don't know. So let's just listen to this one video where Lisa Murkowski, she was saying how the retribution is real to her. So retaliation is real. So this is how afraid Republicans are. So let's listen to this whole speak on his retaliation and how people fear him. I mean, she's not saying that exactly, but you know exactly what she means. Here we go.
People who are afraid. We are all afraid. Okay. I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice because retaliation is real.
Welcome back to State of the Union. That was a very candid admission from veteran Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. My panel is here now. Thank you all for being here. especially on Easter morning. Happy Easter to you. Mike Dubke, I want to start with you since you were a White House communications director in Trump 1.0.
Yes.
About that, because Lisa Murkowski is no shrinking violet. I mean, she was not going to come back to the U.S. Senate, but she waged an improbable, successful race in order to get back as an independent.
Right.
And she's been around a long time. To hear her say that, it is striking.
Well, I may also be a bit of a unicorn in that I also work with Lisa Murkowski.
Oh, I knew that.
I am maybe one of the only people in America to work with both Donald Trump
I'm glad
and
I
Lisa
asked you first.
Murkowski. Listen, they're both fighters, and I'm not at all surprised to hear Senator Murkowski use language like that. She is especially she was in Anchorage. She's very upfront with her constituents. She's going to continue to fight for Alaska.
But you're not surprised that she's afraid to use her voice because of retribution?
I will say this. She is not afraid to use her voice. In fact, I have seen interaction with her and President Trump. He respects fighters. He respects Lisa Murkowski. So I think she may be talking about other members of the Senate, but she definitely is a fighter. And she is probably worried less about retribution. And I think what she meant by that is less about retribution for herself and more about the state of Alaska. You've got to think about how you approach. She has praised President Trump when needed, and she has also held him accountable when needed.
I mean, she said what she said. She said that they're all afraid, and that means she is too. And I believe her. I think people are. I have seen people's positions change on issues. I mean, look at Marco Rubio. He wanted to be Secretary of State. Almost every belief he has had about foreign policy is different now. Now, people can change their mind, but these are some aggressive swings. And we see big institutions that are capitulating to Donald Trump. Look, the power of the White House, the bully pulpit, the federal government is a massive hammer that can be placed on somebody's life, that can interrupt, and it's the lawsuits, it's the attacks on social media. So I don't think we should ignore the fact that even Donald Trump said he will on the campaign trail. He will do retribution.
And it's let's be clear, it's well beyond these lawmakers and Republicans.
Yes.
I mean, from law firms to
universities,
the Associated Press, it goes on and on.
Yeah, but I would argue, I mean, the norms are what people wanted to bust up. I mean, Donald Trump won not once but twice because he's a norm buster. And I think the voters are giving him a lot of leeway. Harry Enton talked this week about what, in a CNN poll, maybe 1% to 2% of Trump voters would change their vote. There's a Harvard-Harris poll out saying 62% of people think the Democrats should let Trump kind of see what he can do. So I think when it comes to busting norms, remember, faith in our institutions hovers around 20%. I think for the federal government, when it comes to universities, maybe 30%. So I think with voters, they're out there saying, yeah, let's give him the benefit of the doubt and see what he can do, because the incremental change has not been working. And I think for a lot of people, they want a hammer and not a scalpel.
Faith in our institutions is eroded because of Donald Trump.
Because he
has literally tried to convince the American people that our institutions are broken when they're not. I mean, they are broken to an extent right now because of Donald Trump, but he is the one who is.
How do you get to a 20% approval rating for the federal government? It's not because of Donald Trump.
That's because of Donald. It is because of Donald Trump.
It has been that low since the 1970s for members of Congress.
I'm not saying that
Used
Democrats
car salesmen have a higher level of approval.
Okay, I'm not saying that Democrats don't have their issues too, but Donald Trump is the reason why in the MAGA institution is the reason why people have lost so much faith in our institutions. And to your point, that is why I think he thinks he can go out there and not allow Abrego Garcia to have due process, defy court orders. He is the one who is perpetuating this, and he is the reason why people are losing faith.
I also think that I agree with you. Donald Trump did win, and the American public probably is more tolerant to some of his aggressive policies. I don't like his policies, but that's what happens when you win an election. So you do Doge. You start to hopefully deport people through a due process in an actual constitutional manner. I get it, right? You do tariffs. That's what happens when you win an election. But retribution is not the same thing as a policy. Retribution is not. And so that is the difference of when people are afraid to express their free speech because they're afraid the federal government will come. That, and I don't think is what anybody, any American should
I don't
really
think
want.
they view it as retribution. I know a lot of
She
Americans
just said
don't.
it.
Yeah, what I would say to the senator is politics ain't beanbag. This is 2025. Right. Welcome. And by the way, I never heard anybody complaining when Nancy Pelosi ruled the House with an iron fist and members would secretly
No,
go
she
to
wasn't breaking the laws.
go to.
She wasn't
saying
defying
is-
court orders.
Can we all
She was
agree
following
retribution
process.
is not the way the president of the United
Well, I
States should
understand
be
they-
acting?
I will just say
Amen.
one thing. The ultimate retribution that we saw in the last year was Joe Biden on the Democratic Party by deciding that he was going to run for re-election. That was ultimate retribution.
How is that
Not
retribution?
retribution.
Because that's-
that
well,
is
that-
called democracy.
I have to stop it right there because I hate how Republicans will just always, both sides, they'll come up with some stupid parallel to what the conversation is about. So bring in Joe Biden. This is what really irks me about Republicans and they're defending Donald Trump at all costs. They cannot say one negative thing about dear Donald. That bothers me more than anything. Here we go.
That is
That's
running
actually
for
changed.
re-election as
There's
president.
one panel member that gets that joke, but yes.
It's actually changing the definition of a word, which is what often happens when we spread mis and disinformation. Retribution is when you don't like what somebody says, and so you use the power that you have through a democratic process or an authoritative process, and you go after people with the hope that you intimidate them to stand up against you.
Well,
That is retribution.
she said
we should all
retaliation.
agree. Retaliation, retribution. Donald Trump said retribution. My
Final word,
apologies.
Adrian.
No, I mean, look, the bottom line is this. I think Lisa Murkowski, I know that you worked for her, so I don't want to sit here and put words in her mouth, but she did say what she said. She made it very clear. I think a lot of people are worried. I think a lot of people are nervous. And I think as long as the courts continue to hold up, which they are to an extent, then people will feel like Lisa Murkowski will feel like they can continue to come out and say that we are nervous and we are worried, and that will allow more people to come to coalesce and push back against Trump's divisive rhetoric and actions right now.
All right, so y'all heard the conversation. So you hear that. Lisa Murkowski is a U.S. Senator from Alaska. She's an independent, and she and Susan Collins, I think Susan's from Maine, they tend to vote. You know, those are the two that we kind of count on sometimes to go between the fence. But she was saying that she's afraid. They're afraid. Just think about it. Donald Trump could send his lawyers after you. He could get you primaried. You know what? I'm not giving them an excuse because some of the others did it and they took the fight and they took what they had to do. I mean, that's what happened to Liz Cheney. She didn't care. And then, yes, they lost their careers because Donald Trump came after them. You know, some of them left on their own, but the fact of the matter is, this is how this man rules, and you have a large number of people. You heard what the Harry Enton's poll on CNN said. Only 1%, maybe 2% of Republicans regret it for voting for Donald Trump. That's where we are, people. This is where we are in America, and it's sad. And it is sad. Which brings me to this conversation that Charles Blow was having. He is a strategist. Was having with Don Lemon about how disappointed we as Black Americans were with the voting electorate of our white brothers and sisters. You know, we can't win elections by ourselves. It's not enough of us. The only way that Barack Obama won that election was because there were a large number of white Americans voted for him. That's how they won the election. And white Americans are who put Trump in office. It wasn't us. The 92% and the 80 whatever percent the men did, we didn't put you in there. And you had a little bit of help from some Latinos, but white Americans put Donald Trump in office. So we're saying to you guys now, the reason we retreated is this is your problem now, not ours. So listen to this exchange with Charles Blow on how Black Americans feel after Trump was elected. Here we go.
I don't think that anyone fully has been able to capture the emotional, the psychic injury that Black people suffered during this election. It was when America said they'd rather burn it all down than to share it, that they would rather risk it all on him than accept her, it hurt us in a way that I don't think we fully have been able to grapple with. And I don't think that us collectively have even been able to grapple with and express. And because of that, we have rested, we have engaged in diversion, we have danced, because the reality of what this means is that maybe we hoped too much. Maybe that Baldwin line that says black people don't want to be betrayed by hope, by too much hoping. That maybe we went out on a ledge and dared to believe America when it was performing during BLM that it meant something by what it was saying, but in fact it didn't. And that betrayal of that, uh, the hurt of that, to watch the destruction that happens in the wake of that, it is deeply personally painful for us. And when I'm around other Black people, particularly those who are engaged some way in the work or documenting the work, we we're licking each other's wounds. We're finding some solace. We're allowing our shoulders to release the tension and being at peace and happy for a moment, because we see the empire crashing down around us. And that is the thing that Black people are grappling with. That's when they say, I'm resting, I'm not going out to protest. It's not that they don't believe that the fight is to be had and they won't eventually have to go and be in the fight. It's that my pain, my trauma, my feeling of desertion right now is so strong that I cannot peacefully be in community with you in the fight. Yeah.
So y'all hear that? He is portraying exactly how I feel. I mean, the reason why I'm doing this podcast is this is my contribution to the movement. But we're not protesting. We can't. We really can't. If you want to see how quick Donald Trump is going to call the National Guard on us,
someone was detected at your front door,
then you need to know exactly what is going on. Because this thing happened. I apologize for that sound of my Alexa in here, because there she goes.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
I'm not sure either. Stop it. Wow. Artificial intelligence, isn't it amazing? It is amazing, but it can be kind of crazy sometimes. But yeah, so that is how I feel. That is how I feel. And that's why it's so important now that the white Americans, you have to do this. We've been asking you to stomp out racism when you hear it. Make people do the right thing. Talk to your own people, because they're not going to listen to us. So now is that time. And you guys are out there marching. We're proud of it. But as far as how we feel right now, we're a bit hurt. Because I honestly, when I sat there on November 5th, the night of, I was expecting Kamala to come through. And I'm going to say my thing I always say. I think she still won that election, guys. It was something went wrong. That's just me. But there's some proof out there. But anyway, I expected her to come out like way ahead of Trump. I really did. But when I saw what was going on, I said, this can't be happening. No. Our white brothers and sisters would not do this to us. They would not. But they did. Particularly, I was upset with white females. You overwhelmingly went Trump. I don't understand that. I'll never understand that one. But then I do understand it because a lot of white females, especially conservative ones, they have to follow the law of the house and the husband. Some of them probably secretly voted for Kamala, but that one right there was a shocker. I expected white men, but there was a part of me that thought white women would pull us through. Yeah, but that didn't happen. So that was Dear Charles Blow, and I understand what he's saying. And it makes a lot of sense because we are heard about that. Now, speaking about all the protests, they are growing and they are growing. Let's listen to Rachel Maddow. She and her crew basically just scoured the country to find all of these protests everywhere. The good white people, y'all are doing a great job out there. Y'all are doing a great job. Keep it up. Donald Trump has to see it. He has to see all these people out there. And someone has to make him understand, you are the president of all people. I don't care if it is half the people don't want to do. That's not a good thing. You need to get that other half under your purview. You know, there's some things you have to do for all people. And right now, you're not doing that, Donald Trump. First of all, you're not doing that for any people right now. Right now, you're doing everything for you. Okay, let's listen to Rachel Maddow and some of the rallies around the country. I won't play the whole thing. It's pretty long, but let's listen to a few.
One thing that was definitely different about this weekend's big day of protest against Trump is that this time the protests got a lot of mainstream media coverage. I don't know if the protests a couple of weeks ago were like a surprise to the headline writers and newsrooms of America's major news outlets, but for whatever reason, a couple of weeks ago, that huge day of protest was really kind of played down or just underplayed somehow in the mainstream press. That definitely turned around for the protest this weekend. Headline, New York Times, shame. Protesters nationwide rally again to condemn Trump policies. Thousands of demonstrators rallied at hundreds of events on Saturday to speak out against the president's handling of immigration, civil liberties, job cuts, and many other issues. The Times front page protest photos and protest signs like these ones, for sale, democracy, and resist, if not now, when, and arrest the kidnappers. Headline, Washington Post, 50-51 protests rally small towns and big cities against Trump policies. Protesters gathered in hundreds of rallies across the country to denounce President Donald Trump. The Washington Post and its coverage front paged a big crowd in Washington, D.C. at the Washington Monument, including this sign front and center, innocent until proven guilty. Headline, the Associated Press, anti-Trump protesters rally in New York, Washington, and elsewhere across the country. Elsewhere is doing a lot of work in that headline, given how many protests there were. But the AP front page, this big banner outside the White House fence, Trump must go now. Next to a sign that says Free Kilmar, or Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Headline, USA Today, nationwide hands-off 50-51 protests against Trump continue for second weekend. They front paged this upside-down American flag in the foreground, hanging, of course, in a way to signify distress. And then you can see the signs there, no king, and impeach, remove, imprison. Headline, CNN, protesters denounce Trump administration in nationwide rallies while supporting impacted communities. Here's the Boston Globe. No kings. Anti-Trump demonstrations around Boston invoke American Revolution. Here's the BBC. Thousands join anti-Trump protests across U.S. Front paging. This is a good sign. I've only ever seen this once. Don't piratize Social Security. That's very well done. Here's The Guardian, which is also based in Britain. Protesters filled the streets in cities across the U.S. to denounce Trump agenda. Here's Reuters, the news service. Thousands of protesters rally against Trump across the United States. Here's Bloomberg. Anti-Trump protesters turn out from New York City to San Francisco, and may I suggest, everywhere in between. Here's CBS News. Anti-Trump rallies held across the U.S. to protest administration's policies. Here's NPR. Protesters unite against Trump in hundreds of rallies across the U.S. No more tariffs on the sign there. Here's the LA Times. Anti-Trump protesters rally again in cities across the country. Impeach and remove being spelled out in bodies on the beach on the front page of the LA Times. This was the lead story on NBC Nightly News on Saturday night. You see the chyron there at the bottom, massive anti-Trump protests across the country.
Tonight, protests across the country, from Denver to Midtown Manhattan. To right outside the White House, people voicing anger at the Trump administration, including over its recent immigration actions.
I don't know if the mainstream media catching up now to what's been going on in the streets, I don't know if it's a big advance for that movement against Trump or not. But it's at least worth noting that it is starting to happen. It really hadn't been happening before, and it is now. The coverage is now there. That said, judging from the literally hundreds of protest videos and images that we reviewed over the weekend and compiled, my sense is that the momentum is here and these protests are going to keep happening basically everywhere, regardless of the level of coverage they get, even though they are now getting more coverage. These are hard to put together, but we've done it. Okay, from left to right and then top to bottom, what you're looking at here is, ready? Anti-Trump protests this weekend in Chicago, Minneapolis, Anchorage. There was a whole bunch of protests in Alaska this weekend. We'll talk about that in a second, but that's Anchorage, third from the left in the middle there on the top row. Then Jacksonville, Florida, Buffalo, New York, Atlanta, Philly, Portland, Oregon, Little Rock, Arkansas, Omaha, of course, New York City, massive crowds in New York City, Denver, Houston, Washington, D.C., Cleveland, Ohio, Salt Lake City, Boise, Idaho, Hartford, Connecticut, and then the last two there, Indianapolis and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I paused there on Anchorage because they really did have a very big crowd in Anchorage this weekend. Thousands of people turned out in Anchorage. And you see some of the signs there are quite good. Due process is a right, not a privilege. There's the big one there up on the right that just says, nope. This is a very good one, actually. It's the only time I've seen this exact phrasing. Only caring about your own rights is exactly how you lose them. That's very good. Orange sign just to the right of that. Nixon and McCarthy weren't this bad. I agree. You may also see another one on the left there that's specific to where this is. Dan and Nick stand up for the rule of law. That's about Republican Senator Dan Sullivan and Republican Congressman Nick Begich, both of whom have been very pro-Trump, even as Alaska's other Republican representative in Congress, Senator Lisa Murkowski, has mildly criticized him. But Dan and Nick, hey, stand up.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. This goes on for another 6 minutes. So it's a very long one. So you can check this out on the MSNBC app if you want to listen to the entire coverage on Rachel Maddow, or you can check them out on YouTube. But yeah, so she just basically covered all of the rallies that are going on all over the country. And guys, these are mostly Anglo-Americans. Yeah. There's not a lot of people of color out there. And they're peaceful. And you notice there's not a bunch of cops and things and and y'all know if we were out there in those numbers around these cities, there would be cops on horses, tear gas, SWAT units, everything would be there. So that's part of the reason why we're not going. The other reason is that we're tired and it's your turn. It's your turn. Y'all are going to have to make this difference because we can't do it. We've done everything that we can to try to get this country on the right track. Yes. So that brings us to one of the most, I should say, my most hated, and I don't hate's a big word, so I don't agree with anything that he says. I'll say that. Byron Donaldson out of Florida. He's a congressman who was just all up in Trump's everything, and Trump didn't even give the guy a cabinet seat at all. But now he's running for the governor of Florida. Okay. So he decides to go home to his town hall. It was quite angry. It was very angry town hall. So I want you to listen to what's going on. Of course, dear Scott Jennings from CNN will say that these are all Democratic hired people that are there just to, make noise. But I beg to differ. Democrats are not hiring people to go to these things. Maybe some Democrats are going there because, all of these districts are not totally Republican. But there are some Republicans in the House. Trust me. Trust me. So listen to Byron Donaldson. He's such a smug person, and he's just kind of rude to me. And he's a black Republican, and you know what I feel about them. So we won't even go there. Whole nother podcast. But let's listen in on his town hall. Here we go.
The Oversight Committee, what oversights are you imposing on Elon Musk and Doge?
Great question. Okay. I guess they like that question. So, a couple things. First and foremost, when it comes to what Elon Musk is doing, everything that he does right now is in the auspices of being a special employee under the presidency of Donald Trump. So how this works is the president is allowed to have special employees. Every president has basically had these special employees. They're tasked with specific duties, specific responsibilities. Some of them have been tasked with going overseas, trying to negotiate climate policy. That was John Kerry when he was the climate czar under President Biden. And in this instance, Elon Musk is essentially the head of the Doge that Donald Trump has set up in his administration. In terms of oversight from Congress, that's much more of an appropriations aspect. What Doge is doing right now is they're going through every agency and they're examining any contracts or any lack of efficiencies in spending federal dollars. This is something that I'm going to answer you. Now, I'm going to answer you, but if you want to yell, it's okay, but I just want to answer you. Are you going to allow me to answer the question? Okay, so, like I said, what they are doing is under the directions of the President of the United States. If you're going to talk about what oversight is doing, we actually have to let the Doge committee, the Doge department, actually finish its work. What they are examining right now is inefficiency in the federal system. This is something that President Obama wanted to do when President Obama was elected president of the United States. You can do what you want to, but those are the facts. Because if you go back in time, back to 2009, then President Obama famously said that he wanted to examine efficiencies, or lack thereof, in the federal government. Elon Musk is doing the exact same thing. He's doing the same thing. So, if you want to ask what the Oversight Committee is doing, the Oversight Committee is doing the responsible thing. We are letting Doge complete its work. Most of the budget cuts that Doge will present have to go through the appropriations process. And so when it goes to the Appropriations Committee, any adjustments that are made to federal spending will occur there, and they'll get an up or down vote in the Appropriations Committee first, and then on the floor of the House, also on the floor of the Senate. That is the process.
Good luck, Byron, in Florida. Doesn't sound like you're too popular there. Doesn't sound like you're too popular. He's so pompous, but okay. And the way that his talking points is that he never answers the question. He always deflects. So I'm not a fan of Byron Donaldson, as you can see here. But that was his town hall. And yes, Scott Jennings, if you ever happen to listen to my podcast, those are not Democratic operatives hired to be at a town hall. They may be Democrats that showed up, but you may have some Republicans in there too. That's Florida, red Florida. All right? He has a very red district. Those are not Democrats. All right, so there you go. Now, speaking of laws and fear and retribution, this is one of my podcasters that I follow. His name is David Pakman, and I did not know that he was not an American citizen. He's an American citizen. He's a naturalized American citizen. And I want you to listen to what he's saying about what his immigration lawyer friends have told him about traveling abroad. This is scary. Listen to David Pakman, and you can find him on podcasts, wherever you listen on podcasts. Here we go.
I am going to tell you something today that I never thought I would say on this show. I have now been warned multiple times by immigration lawyers that I should not leave the country at this time. Let me explain. I'm a naturalized U.S. citizen. Many people maybe don't know that. I've been a citizen of the United States since I was, I think, 16 or so years old. So went through the entire process legally. My family moved to the United States legally, obtained permanent residency. Ultimately, my parents got citizenship as an under 18 son of naturalized citizens. I was able to get citizenship by going to the post office and filling out a passport application. And then that was decades ago. And here I am in 2025 being told that even with my citizenship, it might be risky to travel internationally under this second Trump administration because of what might happen when I get back. Now, I'm not going to pretend, I might be deported. They're going to rip up my passport. It's not about that. But the idea is that coming back might be unpredictably uncomfortable or uncomfortably unpredictable, because we've already seen reports of U.S. citizens detained at the border. We've seen U.S. citizens held and questioned for hours without even being told why. We've seen a spike in the stories from folks who are dual nationals or have names that look or sound foreign, or maybe they speak with an accent. Stories of those folks being pulled aside, treated like suspects at their own country's border. And what immigration attorneys are telling me, the ones that are paying attention, is that naturalized citizens, people like me, in Trump's second term, with the return of these Stephen Miller style policies, we just need to be careful. Some are saying if you leave, have legal representation lined up, know exactly which immigration lawyer you will call, and that they will be available to take your call in case you end up in one of these situations. Think of it, legal representation to re-enter a country you are a citizen of. Now, what is the goal here? I don't believe that it is to actually deport U.S. citizens. Not yet, anyway, even though Trump is talking about it. What they want is fear. Intimidation is the goal. Give these folks, people like me, the feeling that we don't quite belong, even if we've done everything right. It's about making us feel like a problem, like foreigners, like we're on probation in a country that we call home. This is a hallmark of authoritarian system.
Did y'all hear that? So people who are American citizens are being told to have immigration lawyers lined up and to expect to be detained or something when you come back through the immigration office at the airports and whatever. So, scary? Yes, but this is Donald Trump's world. This is his world. So, this is what's going on, guys. Believe it or not. Yeah. And so, yes, their immigration is a big topic. And yes, we do all want it to be handled correctly so that people can truly come into this country the right way. But what they're doing is the wrong way. With fear, retribution, bullying, everything else. And it's just not right. It's just not right. When I first started at the beginning of the year, I didn't really care because I was so mad at Latinos for the way they voted. I didn't really care. But after seeing how they're really doing people, it makes me angry because the people they're going after, they didn't vote. They couldn't vote. So I feel some kind of a way for them, but I feel some kind of way still about their Latino brothers and sisters who are citizens that voted with Trump because you didn't want to be associated with someone illegal. But these people are human. And what's going on is just not right, guys. It's just not right. Yeah. So, not all, and I want you to get this straight. I have nothing against white people, nothing, because, in the comments, I'm called all kinds of black racists and whatever else on my YouTube comments that I'm dividing the races. talking about this stuff, but because I have there are some great people that are doing some great things. But I want you to listen to this guy I found on TikTok who is at some sort of a town hall meeting. I think the subject matter of it is they're about to vote on something that's going to remove some national black statues or something of that nature in his town. And the city council has written it up, and it's just blatant racist to him. And he's calling it out. I don't know exactly what the vote was about, but we might get it from his talking point. But he is up speaking about it to the governing body of that city, letting them know how wrong we are as a people and what we're doing. But here we go.
I'm a 12th generation North Carolinian. My first ancestor coming in North Carolina in the late 1600s into what would become Bertie County. I say that with an immense amount of pride. But to admit that I'm a 12th generation anything in this country means that I'm most likely the direct descendant of enslavers. And in my case, I am. I'm the direct descendant of enslavers. And that's not an easy thing to say. But I grew up in a time where, that flag and that history was revered. And when I look back, I think it was the conflation of that flag with Southern identity. And it came to mean all of these other things. I grew up on the Leonard Skinner shows when they hit, Sweet Home Alabama, and a 100-foot by 50-foot Confederate flag dropped at the back of the stage, and everybody went nuts, and my daddy was one of them. And then I grew up, and I read books, and I think about someone like Alexander Stephens, and I'm assuming we all know who Alexander Stephens is, but if we don't, he was the vice president of the Confederacy. And when he was defining what that institution was, he said, its foundation rests, its cornerstone is laid upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery and subordination to the superior race is his natural and born condition. That's what the man said. That's what he said it defined. So I don't care about any kind of revisionist history that wishes to place it as something else, because it's not that. And I think about the black communities in Jackson County. I think about people who have descendants here who go back hundreds of years. And what every one of you who voted for that is saying is that you revere a moment in time when their ancestors were in bondage. That's what that means. I view your actions as an act of white supremacy. That's what I view it as. I think it's shameful. I didn't like what happened before. I didn't like the plaques, but hey, compromise, whatever. But to have done that with no moment for public comment, to have done that, just on a whim, we're going to do this and make everybody else live with it, is shameful. It's trash. And I thought about writing you, but I've written you before and you don't write me back. I know that me saying here is not going to change any of your minds, and that the only thing that I can do is vote. And I will, because that's what I always do. But I also want to take a moment to say it to every one of y'all's faces that voted for this, that's what that strikes me as. And it's not just me. And all of those people that you supposedly represent, that's what it means to them too. It means that you revere a moment in time when their ancestors were enslaved. That's nothing to be celebrated. And so I wish you would reconsider. At the very least, I wish you would open it up to public comment. If nothing else, it's $13,000 that you just tossed down the drain. That was a ton of money that went into that, a ton of thought that went into that. I would at least like there to be a discussion where other people can say what they want to say.
Okay, I just looked at the end of it. I didn't watch it all the way through. The end of it, it showed some photos of some Confederate statues that had like plaques and words on it. So instead of removing the statues, I think they put what he was saying. They put some plaques there with words on them, and it was still the same thing. Even if they did remove the stuff, they left a big plaque there that was basically saying that was very anti-black on it. So, and he was standing up in front of his own white constituents, telling them this is wrong. We need so many more people like this guy. So many more people like this guy. And I applaud him for standing there and really understanding the plight of this country. Okay. So let's move on down to like Dear Pete Hegseth. Yeah, he's in the news. He's in the news. And guys, there's a second signal chat. This time it has his wife, his brother, and some other folks on the chat that are not, they have not have security clearance. And even if they did, they're on signal again. Yeah. So he is basically has never said, I'm sorry, I've done this. He's justifying that the information is not classified. We read it. The American people do not need to know that 0900 you're getting ready to blow up the Houthis and all the other stuff that you put in that first signal chat. That's classified, Dear Pete. So what's happening now, guys, there's a lot of Donald Trump. One thing about him, being loyal is one thing, but also he doesn't like bumbly handling of anything. If people start to make him look bad, then he is going to quietly do something. He's not going to give the Democrats a win and take Pete Hegseth out, but we all know this man should have been there because he's not qualified. He's not qualified. He could have worked in the administration anywhere, somewhere else, but he should not be the head of the Department of Defense. And I think the hammer is coming down. There's been some reports. There's been some reports that they have been actually, Donald Trump has asked for some information on some things. Yes. So he is researching to see what's going on. But right now he's saying that he's not going to get rid of Pete. But I'm telling you, Pete is not qualified for this job. So I think his days may be numbered. But if they do it, it'll be very quiet. They'll either reassign him somewhere else or something like that or whatever. I don't know what they'll do, but I don't know that he's going to be in here too long. We'll see how this pans out. But let's listen to Pete speak for himself on Fox News. He just sounds stupid. He's just not qualified for this. Here we go.
Out of the building are now attempting to leak and sabotage the president's agenda.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth went on Fox and Friends to defend himself against allegations that he shared sensitive information with his wife, brother, and lawyer on the messaging app Signal.
I look at war plans every single day. What was shared over Signal, then and now, however you characterize it, was informal, unclassified coordinations for media coordination and other things.
Sources tell CNN, however, that Hegseth shared detailed military plans against the Houthis in Yemen. The defense secretary is blaming, quote, disgruntled former employees, unquote, for leaking information to the press. 3 former officials, who were recently fired, wrote in a joint statement that they are, quote, incredibly disappointed by the manner in which our service at the Department of Defense ended and denied leaking information. This is the second time Hegseth has been accused of participating in a Signal chat where sensitive information was discussed, after editor-in-chief of The Atlantic Jeffrey Goldberg was added to a different Signal chat and reported its contents.
So he's out there trying to justify he didn't make a mistake. He made a mistake. People will be more inclined to go with you if you would admit it, but you're going around saying that it's not. You're looking really stupid, Pete. You're looking really, really stupid. And why is it that everybody that Donald Trump has around him has junk? He's in his 3rd marriage. His mother even denounced him as to not being, they had to coerce her into changing her statement of what she said about her own son. Now that's pretty bad when your own mom is even saying that he's not ready yet. I mean, he's still an alcoholic. He's only been, clean for a few months from what I've heard. That may be wrong. I don't know, but I don't know. The guy's just not qualified, guys. He's just not qualified. So here's some more on Pete Hegseth.
Idea that there was a second Signal chat where he was sharing this information about these strikes with people like his wife, his brother, his personal attorney, who don't have security clearances. What are you thinking as someone who stood at that podium at the Pentagon and knows how this information is typically handled?
I mean, it's truly shocking. I think when I saw this reporting coming out from the New York Times at first, there was no question there were going to be more Signal threads. Who started them? This one in particular was started by Pete Hegseth. And for him to add, his wife, his brother, his personal attorney, people that don't need access or need to know about classified information about operations involving the Houthis in any way. I mean, this is something that we would never do under the previous administration. And on top of that, putting these classified details into a commercial texting app like Signal, again, that puts our fighter pilots at risk. That was something that, certainly concerned me deeply when these texts were first exposed just a month ago. It's that same concern. It's putting the operation, those fighter pilots who are in the air about to conduct this operation at risk with people that don't need to know this information.
All right. So that's from one person that used to work in the Department of Defense. Let's listen to another. This is a roundtable on CNN.
Still publicly standing by Hegseth as the White House denies a report that it's looking to replace Hegseth.
Mr. President, are you concerned about the level of chaos and dysfunction that's being described at your Pentagon?
There's no dysfunction at all. Ask the Houthis how much dysfunction there. There's none. Pete's doing a great job. Just fake news. They just bring up stories. I guess it sounds like disgruntled employees. He was put there to get rid of a lot of bad people, and that's what he's doing. So you don't always have friends when you do it.
Scott Jennings, this one's for you. The Secretary of Defense putting his family on his personal phone on a Signal group chat. Don Bacon, of course, one of the most endangered Republicans in Congress. This, of course, as the spokesman, the former spokesman, who, by the way, had argued for Hegseth to get the job in the first place, says, this is a total mess. Should President Trump be standing by Hegseth the way he is, or should he not?
Well, a couple things. One, on the Signal issues, I think the White House initially, when this story first came out a few weeks ago, acknowledged it was a mistake to use Signal. So that's number one. Number two, based on the people I've spoken to in the White House today, there is no way they are going to throw Hegseth overboard over this. They will double down on this. They will dig in. That's not the way things work in Trump world. I spoke to someone who'd spoken to the president today, and what you saw publicly is what you're also hearing privately, that he is not interested in giving the media or the Democrats a win here over this Signal Gate issue. So my expectation is they're going to stick with Hegseth, at least for now, and double down on the fight over these Signal issues, which they consider to be over with and not that big of a deal.
Okay, so they think that they don't want to give Democrats a win. But Elliot Williams, my question is, if, this is what we're reporting, right? That it was a Signal chat, personal phone, members of his family. So again, separate from the national security officials who all had security clearances, right? And were allowed to see a lot of the information, presumably. Did he break the law?
He certainly violated the standards for handling information and maybe broke the law. Now, the question is, what do you do about it? And and picking up on your point, Scott, when it comes to the questions of his competence to serve, it always goes quickly to, well, they don't want to give Democrats a win, or, well, we came out of Joe Biden and Lloyd Austin, therefore somebody else should be Secretary of Defense. No one is making a compelling argument for Pete Hegseth's competence to be Secretary of Defense. And
the choice is not necessarily Lloyd Austin or Pete Hegseth. It's Lloyd Austin or any Republican.
But that's
to your point, though.
That's how it's framed.
But these people don't just exist in a pod and you pop the pod and put the next one in. There's a confirmation. Sure. They spent an enormous amount of political capital on getting Hegseth confirmed. To bail on that now, I think would be just, I just don't think it's in their DNA to do that.
But you're kind of confirming my point, though, which is that it's a question of what it would take to get someone else in the job, not is this person who appears to be manifestly unfit to be running a multi-billion-dollar agency with hundreds of thousands of employees.
They don't agree with that.
You hear that? So the big deal is they don't want Democrats to get a win, but forget about that we have a unqualified person running the most important part of our government, and maybe the largest employer in the world, in the country, is the U.S. military. Now, people may not understand a lot about these other agencies like USAID, but the normal person understands about the Department of Defense. And people are not happy with this. That's one of the polls where people are not happy with what Pete Hegseth is doing. Yeah, not happy. Let's listen to a little bit of what MSNBC was saying on the subject of Pete Hegseth, and we'll go from there.
Courtney, you helped break this story. Walk us through the sequence of events and what we now know.
Yeah, so one of the big questions that we've had ever since the very first Signal chat was exposed by The Atlantic several weeks ago was exactly whether this information was classified. Look, people like, I don't want to put words in General Hertling's mouth, but somebody who has been at the tip of the spear during missions and operations can tell you that specific information about an imminent operation, especially one that has already been ordered to go, would be considered classified, and oftentimes at some of the highest levels of classification in the United States military. And obviously that's to keep the men and women who were involved in that operation safe and protect the sanctity of the mission itself. Well, what we have now learned is that, in fact, the information that was provided by Secretary Hegseth in that Signal chat was provided directly from the commander of U.S. Central Command, General Eric Kurilla. And in fact, he sent that information on a classified system to Secretary Hegseth. And Anna, what we learned, according to these officials who we spoke with, was, in fact, Secretary Hegseth forwarded on that information on his personal phone on an unclassified Signal app, a messaging app that many people use, frankly, but again, unclassified. Literally within minutes of getting that information, he sent that on the Signal app, not only to the Signal chat that National Security Advisor Mike Waltz had started, but also on one that the Secretary himself had started that, as we have now learned, included his wife, his brother, his personal attorney, and a number of his top aides. Again, the information was provided to Secretary Hegseth on a classified server, and he passed some of it on word for word on the Signal app, Anna.
Courtney, you helped break this story. Walk us through the sequence of events.
All right, so why? Guys. Now, y'all know, if this had been the Obama administration, the Biden administration, the Republicans would not have stood for this. Do you see how they rallied around Hillary Clinton in the emails? Do they think we're stupid? They think we're stupid. And you can talk all you want and spin it however you want, Scott Jennings or all the rest of you Republican pundits. This guy needs to go. We're just going to see just how long he stays around. And we'll see what Donald Trump does. But I think that he may straighten up, but I don't think he's capable of doing what he needs to do. So he's going to mess up again because he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing. He has no idea what this job is all about. All right. So now let's talk about some other things here. One thing is that, did y'all hear that Michelle Obama has opened up? She was on her podcast. She has a podcast with her brother. And she had an episode where she had Taraji P. Henson on there. And I guess the question came up as to why she decided not to attend the inauguration of President Trump and Jimmy Carter's funeral. And she had some things to say. I don't have the actual audio, but I'm going to read what it says. Michelle Obama attended Donald Trump's first inauguration, but opted to skip it, the second ceremony. On a new episode of her IMO podcast, Michelle Obama opened up to why she skipped Donald Trump's second inauguration in January. The former First Lady said it was simply that the choice that was right for me, revealing that she even had to trick herself to not give in and attend. Obama and guest Taraji P. Henson also chatted about embracing the art of saying no. Michelle Obama is opening up and she's saying that she didn't want to go. I don't blame her. She didn't want to talk herself out of it. She was going to do the right thing, but she said no. Sometimes you just got to go. No. I had to learn that myself. Sometimes people think I'm crazy and they would ask me to do something. I'll say, no, I don't want to. And they go, you don't? I'll say, no, I don't. It feels real good too. And that's what Michelle did. She said, no, Barack, you go ahead and go. I know that you have to go, but I don't. And she didn't. And they're not getting divorced, so you can stop all of that. Okay? So that's dear Michelle Obama in the news. And just so you know, her approval rating still skyrockets. It's still higher than Barack's, too. If she ever ran for president, she would be highly contested. But she says that she would never do that, and I believe her. So there you go. But sometimes people say never. I don't think she has any wants to do that at all. She has no desire. None. Okay. All right, so I'm wrapping up the podcast, but what I wanted to do before we go is I wanted to go through some of I blog the video part of my podcast. I do a video version of it. For those of you that listen, you can catch the video version of, if you just want to watch Carl E. Long in action, you can watch me on my YouTube channel, and you can catch the video version. But I blog a lot of clips of the podcast on social media, on YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and others. And sometimes I get some really strange and different responses. And the people are coming at me, of course. You know, I'm a leftard, so the Megamites are fighting me. But this was some interesting things this time, because this shows how strange and what's going on in America, guys. And it is scary. So one of the ones that I did, one of my episodes was about them releasing Garcia from the El Salvador prison, and I was speaking about how the Supreme Court, you know, they needed due process and the whole bit. But listen to some of these comments that I got. I'll give you the first one here. This is from Mario Galvez 427, and this was a good one. Since she was talking to the MAGA people, she says, "What the MAGA followers do not understand is the danger of getting rid of due process in this country. Even U.S. nationals would be at risk of being sent to a Salvadorian gulag, El Cicot, that's the name of it. We all heard Trump tell Bukele last week during their White House meeting to build more jails and get ready for U.S. homegrown nationals in El Salvador. People love Bukele, despite the fact that he has put the country on a state of exception, no rights or limited freedom. On the streets, you see lots of soldiers and police patrolling. They have the right to stop anyone and question them. They can arrest anyone they deem a potential danger. One could argue that Salvadorians are stupid for adoring a self-proclaimed dictator. Isn't that the same path Trump is taking of becoming a dictator? Are we just as stupid as those Salvadorians adoring the dictator? It is insanity." So she makes quite a big point there. Mario Galvez. Yeah, so all of you that are allowing Trump to do anything, no matter what, think about that right there. Think about that. All right, so here's another. This is from Anon Amos, and he's responding to what I was talking about, returning Garcia back to the states like the Supreme Court says. He goes, "Immigration laws are much different than criminal laws. They deported him just under suspicion, which is unfortunate, but within their right. No, I believe that's the case. As far as a normal president, the last one was Obama, I suppose. Democrats acted not only as if Biden was perfectly fine, but that he could serve another 4 years. They did that up until the point where they had no choice but to admit the truth." Okay, so there they go deflecting. So he goes, they deported him just under suspicion, which is unfortunate, but within their right. No, it's not. You can't just take someone away for suspicion. They have to have due process. Maybe they can be arrested, but you cannot just do judge and jury and in prison without going before some sort of due process. And I'll keep saying that. All right. So Anon Omas, wrong. All right, here's another. let's see. This one says, this is Gail Gelford. We were going back and forth, and she was just, I'll tell you what it says. She goes, Carl, that's me. I'm sorry you don't approve, but you know what? We, the people, voted for Donald Trump to be president, to do exactly what he's doing. And if that means you don't like his cabinet, tough. We put up with Biden's nonsense for 4 years, and it got us higher prices, higher inflation, $37 trillion in debt, and it needs to be fixed. And all you people out there thinking that Elon Musk is the bad guy, while you guys all loved him just a year ago, just 5 years or 6 years ago, and you know what, as far as these legal gang members, and he's trying to get out of this country. Well, that is his second article. That is in the second article, too, of the Constitution. It's right, only him. He is the executor. She ain't reading that right. All these federal judges in the immigration department and stuff like that, they technically work under him. No, they don't. He can fire them all if he wants to, because immigration judges are technically employed by the executor of our government, the executive branch of our government. But until then, send them all to get MO. I don't know what that means. But until then, send them all to get MOW. I don't know what that means. They're still in the United States. The judiciary does not run this country. They are not the executive branch. Okay. Equal. The legislative, the judiciary, and the executive are co-equal branches of our government. That's all you got to say. That's it. Wrong. All right. And here's number 4. And this is from dear Kevin Finch, 6654. He said, he's on my YouTube channel, this illegal immigrant that y'all keep saying didn't have due process most definitely has gotten more than due process. He's been proven and told by 2 immigration judges that he is affiliated with the gang, and the thought that them fools keep fighting for this man and other illegal immigrants is just dumbfounded to the person that has common sense. And he signs it MAGA with the heart. And I answer him back. I had to answer him back because he was just so wrong. I don't care if you I don't care if all you say is true. He gets due process in America. You just don't convict and throw people in a maximum security jail for life like that. Due process is the issue here, Mr. MAGA. Why don't that matter? Why doesn't that matter to you? Have you guys lost all lawlessness? Donald Trump is not that friggin' awesome for you to throw away American laws and values. The Supreme Court said to send him back. And he's not following that, guys. He is not following a direct order from the Supreme Court. Yes. Okay. And here's the last one. This is from Just Peaches 3513. And she said she would love to see my resources on what I came up with on the whole deportation of Garcia. Number 1, she says, restraining orders aren't just given away freely. He abused his wife, beat her. That isn't a simple altercation. Shame on you. Okay. Still doesn't send you to a maximum security prison for life. All right. I'll say that to you. You cannot force a president to release one of his own citizens to another nation. Even the Supreme Court doesn't have this type of jurisdiction. The most our president can do is ask, and he did. Do you prefer we take him by force? What exactly is your plan here? You sound ignorant. It's legalities. I'm not ignorant, and it's not legalities. You shouldn't have sent him in the first place. Donald Trump has not officially asked that man anything. He's kind of like going along with him. They're playing a game. If Donald Trump wanted the guy back, he'd get him back. You're paying the damn El Salvadorians for that, to house them there. You can get him back. The Supreme Court said get him back. All right. Then she says he's a citizen of El Salvador. He was sent to El Salvador. Your analogy is once again ignorant. He wasn't sent to a foreign nation. He was sent home. Oh my God. He was sent to a nation where another immigration judge says that he was on a protective order and he could not be deported back to his own country for this things like what's happening to him right now. retaliation. Even if he is in the gang, which he says he's not, and there's no proof that says he is, then you can't just do that. And then she goes, I have advice for you. How the internet works, use it to educate yourself. Don't just read headlines and spout talking points. Actually know the facts and form your own opinion from those facts. If, based on facts, not emotions, you lean left, you can still gain respect. But right now, you sound like a fool. Well, dear Just Pieces, I don't sound like a fool, and I do research. And of course, I responded to her because she and I were going back and forth. I said, blah, blah, blah. I don't care what you say. The guy did. He deserves due process. Okay? So those are always fun. I've gotten to where, when I first started getting those comments, they used to bother me when people would call me fools and names and all kinds of other stuff. Old man, and this guy's stupid, dumb, whatever. I mean, because MAGA, when you're speaking truth, they will find you. They don't just go after people that don't do anything. They will find you. So it's kind of a compliment of sorts that they troll me so bad. But I don't give you anything that I haven't researched, dear Just Peaches. I'll let you know that. And if I make a goof, you're going to know about it. And I am going to fix it. Okay? All right. So I'd like to end this podcast on something really fun. I've been listening to all these people talk about this movie, Sinners. I haven't seen it yet. But the excitement around it is phenomenal. This has got to be a great movie. Because, I mean, I haven't seen so much excitement around a movie in a long time. So I'm going to play a clip of one lady who was on TikTok giving her review of the movie and her enthusiasm for it. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, she may be giving us some spoiler alerts. I don't know because I haven't read anything about the movie. So I want to caution you if you don't want to listen to anything about the Sinners. But she's just kind of giving generalizations. So it may not be too much of a spoiler alert, but it could be. So here we go. Let's listen to this and we'll be right back.
Have changed my life. I get nervous going into movies when there's just so much hype around it, and I genuinely have not seen one bad review of this movie, so I was scared. I'm like, what if I'm that one person? Believe the hype. Believe it. It fucking deserves it. I have not had a movie strike awe into me in a very long time. The last time was probably last time I saw an IMAX movie, which was when they re-released Titanic in 2012. Sinners combines everything I love. Vampires, musicals, Michael B. Jordan. The only thing better than one Michael B. Jordan is two Michael B. Jordans, and honestly, they could have cast actual twins in this movie. I don't think it would have been the same. I think the casting in this movie, his character specifically, is spot on. And this is the first movie I've seen in a long time where I was truly invested in every single character. Even the ones that I didn't like, I was still invested and really wanted to see where their story went and what happened to them. I also love movies that take place around this time. This took place in 1932, and like the costume design was phenomenal. The music, the dancing, everything about it really felt like it just transported you back to that time. Like you genuinely felt like you were there. The cinematography in this movie is some of the most beautiful that I have seen in a very long time. I think that's where the awe came from. Like there were literally some shots where I was just staring wide-eyed at the screen. One of the vampire deaths is probably the most beautiful and intense vampire deaths I've ever seen on screen in anything. There is genuinely not one bad thing I can find about this movie. I think every element of it was perfect, and it's a fucking masterpiece. It's just such an inventive, unique, and really important take on a vampire story, and I would go as far as to say that this is the most culturally important movie since Get Out. And what I loved about the vampire element is it doesn't even come in until like almost halfway through the movie, at least an hour in. Because it's just so much more than a vampire movie, and I think the pacing and just the storyline itself was so perfect. It was just such a perfect setup for when they actually did come in full force. And I just had so many emotions watching this. I was horrified, I laughed, I cried, specifically at that mid-credit scene, it got me. Honestly, I think this movie is going to be my new personality for the foreseeable future, and I'm going to listen to the soundtrack on repeat. It's beautiful, it's bold, the characters are great, the storyline is great, everybody held their own, the performances are great, the music is great. I genuinely, again, cannot find one bad thing to say about this movie.
Wow. I've never heard a review of a movie like that in a long time. Y'all know I do movie reviews as well, so once this politics stuff calms down, I'll get back to what my roots really are, entertainment. Although politics is my passion right now because I love this country. So that's where I'm going to be for a while, but I will throw some things in here and there. Once I go and see the movie, if there is an impelling story that will deserve a full podcast, I will cover it. I won't do any spoilers. I'll cover it in a way that is supportive of the whole movie or compliments it, but I won't give any spoilers away. But hopefully I'll go and see it this weekend. Yes, I want to see it. I mean, if you want to read, there's a whole bunch of positive, great reviews. And there are some people that were kind of disturbed by it. And that's going to be more of your Christians, were disturbed by some of it. But I haven't read anything about the movie. I don't even know what it's about. I just know Michael B. Jordan is in it and Ryan Coogler did it. So we will see. But chime in and let me know what you know about the Movie Centers on any one of my socials. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining this episode of my podcast. You can listen to this on wherever you listen to podcasts. Yes, you can find me on any of the podcasts. I just joined Substack, so you can also find me on Substack as well. So you have a wonderful day. And guys, let's make America fun again. Make it fun again. And let's live together as one. We can do this. We can do this. We can. So have a great day. Bye now.